All right, I'm just going to wait a few minutes until some more people join, but feel free to say hey for the few of you that are here in the chat. There's a chat here. So feel free to just drop your name, say hello. If you got any questions, put those in there as well. While I'm waiting just another 2 minutes for everyone to join, feel free to pull up the PDF file. All of you must have found it if you're on this video right now, but feel free to either print the PDF file out and have the sheets of paper with the charts on it next to you so that you can draw on it, or maybe if you just want to pull it up on the side of this window or something. I'm actually going to pull it up on the screen too so that you can see it there. But I do like to give that PDF just so that you can follow along as I go through the charts, and so that hopefully you can learn a little bit of astrology too as I talk about everything. Also, I should mention this too, for those of you who want the recording, because some of you may have to cut out early to this or may not be able to catch it all, the recording of this webinar will be sent out to all of you within 24 hours after this occurs, so by the same time tomorrow. The way it will be sent to you is an email update from my online store. It should be a separate email, and it will come as an attachment. So to that email update, you'll see an attachment at the very bottom of that email. It's possible it may be either a zip file that you might have to click on, or if it's not a zip file, it might be another PDF like the one that you opened to get here. And on the first page of that PDF, you're going to have a new link different than this one that you used, and that new link will take you to the right place, because I do get a lot of questions about how to find the recording. So I wanted to let you all know that. Yes, the webinar should be 1 hour. Sometimes I get a little chatty. So hopefully I'll try to stay on time so that we can make that happen. Okay. Yeah, definitely been very interesting times the past few months for sure. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull that PDF up on the screen just so you can see it. I'll talk through the charts there. And my webinars, what I do like to start with first, once I pull the PDF up on the screen, is just my general thoughts about this month, about what's going on, kind of speaking about things off the cuff, maybe pointing out a few specific alignments of this month that I think are important. And then after that, I'm going to go through each of the pages of the PDF, which goes through the moon phases, what sign the moon is in on each day, and talk about good days and bad days and how the month is going to evolve. Okay, feel free again at any time to comment in the chat, to respond to other people's comments, to ask me questions. I love that. I'm a Gemini, so that inspires me and excites me, and I'll check that on occasion to see if there's any questions. Okay, I'm sorry, just looking at the chat really quickly. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring the PDF up on the screen. All right, can you all see it? Oh, where'd my chat box go? Let me just open that really quickly. Okay. This should look familiar. You all should have it. Just to go over it, when you get the updated email update about the recording, if I do send a PDF file, this will then change to be a different link where you can find the recording of it. So it will be on this page. Okay. All right, maybe now I'll just talk in general about this next month. I've debated, like in the past with my webinars, I used to bring pictures up on the screen and images from Google. I don't know if that helps. If some of you saw those old webinars, let me know if you want me to continue doing the images, but for right now, I'll just talk a bit about it. This month to me is a huge month. I think it's one of the biggest months of the entire year, is April. If I had to pick another month which might rival April, I might have to say like the eclipse season around July, June and July, when that's going to happen. And the next big time would be December. So to me, it's really April and December that are huge, and then eclipses. But eclipses happen, I mean, they happen, they're big events, but they do happen every year, even though they happen in different signs. So this to me is one of the top 3, I would say, big months of this year. And this, to me, is huge because of a very rare alignment that's happening in the astrology that does not happen that often. And that's a pretty big deal. For those of you who've been following me for a while, you'll know that I'm talking about the Saturn South Node Pluto conjunction. trying to point to it with my pointer here. And yeah, this is, it's rare, it's unusual, it doesn't happen that often, and what it brings is big change in the structures of our lives. So the reason why I say change is because Pluto to me a lot of times brings transformation, rising from the ashes in order to transform to be something different. A lot of times though, in order for that transformation to happen though, sometimes we're fearful, we're scared, old things have to get broken down or torn down. That could be a little bit of a challenge with Pluto. The reason why this is really big is because it's with Saturn, and that again is bringing a big transformation with Saturn and some of our responsibilities and some of the things in our life that we've built up for a really, really, really long time, that we've relied on, that we trusted, that we thought could never fail. And all of a sudden, when Pluto meets Saturn, which happens once every 35 years in Saturn's home sign, the things that we trusted, the things that we thought would never fail, that we thought would work, that we built for years, all of a sudden don't work or need to change to be something different that resonates more with us at this time. Okay, this alignment, for those of you who've been following me, know I've been talking about this for a while. I've been like ready. I've been preparing for this to happen. And this is the month that this alignment that I've been talking about is going to get the closest it's ever going to get until December, which is why December is my next big, huge month, other than the eclipse season around July, to look out for. Okay, and that means that instead of me talking about, like I have been talking about for the past few months, change is coming, things are going to change, things are going to be different, the structure of your life is going to get torn down, instead of me talking about that coming somewhere out there in the future, eventually, this is the month when it actually begins to happen. It becomes real, and we begin to have to make those choices and those decisions to make that change manifest in reality in a practical way, instead of in the mind, instead of in the future, instead of in our sense of ideas. Okay, and this is when it's going to occur, because by the end of this month, Saturn and Pluto are both going to be at 22 degrees with the South Node here, and it's going to be a thing that we're going to have to deal with. Do I think that this change, where all of a sudden, once we make choices to do the big thing that we need to make our life different, do I think that all of a sudden we're going to appear at the end of April and we're going to have this beautiful new life with all these shiny new things? No. Because this alignment is going to happen, Saturn, Pluto, South Node, and then Saturn's going to go retrograde, Pluto's going to go retrograde, all at the same spot, and they're going to separate from each other and then come back. I think it's going to take every bit of time in between April and December for us to settle into all of that. And it's almost like in between April this month and December is like a portal where we're like definitely no longer in that old life that we thought would never fail, that we had built up for years and years and years. We're now more in the new life, and we're trying to renegotiate, retool, and work everything together so that by the time December gets around, we're comfortable in it, we're doing it, we're no longer worried about it, it's a real thing that we're making happen, okay? So I kind of see that. I almost, as I was preparing for this webinar, wanted to think of it a little bit as like a rehearsal. Like, I don't know, when I was younger, my parents used to put me in dance lessons a lot. And so we'd practice like normally. I'd like go every week and we'd learn a dance or whatever. And then once or twice a year, we'd actually have to perform what we learned in our practice in our classes in front of an audience. But before we performed in front of the audience, say that's December, when Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node come exact, we had to do rehearsals where they were like the real thing. We did it on a real stage. We wore our real costumes. We had the curtains and everything, but it wasn't actually the real deal. We were just getting everything that we needed, the best that we could, to finally prepare for that. So that's kind of where I see we are now in this kind of phase. Where we've done the work, most of the work that we need to prepare to get to this point. And this point, we're about to go on stage, we're about to have our big moment. We just need to make sure that we're keeping everything going, that everything's right, and that we're not afraid to make this change, okay? So that's where I am there. Another reason why I want to say, just explain the astrology behind it, why it's so big, is because these planets are slow moving. I mean, Saturn's like, I don't know, Saturn's not like too slow moving. I guess it kind of is. It takes Saturn about 30 years to go around the entire zodiac. It takes Pluto way longer than that. So when you get two slow moving planets that meet up with each other, these are very rare changes in a lot of ways that impact our lives in huge ways. Yeah. The fast-moving planets, Venus, Mercury, the Sun, the Moon, they can bring changes in our life, but those kind of changes that the Sun, Mercury, and Venus make are changes on the day-to-day. They're smaller things, like little things that happen, but whenever you see Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, Jupiter, Uranus move signs, these are not small things. These are huge things in our life that are occurring. And so that's also just to explain the reasoning behind why I said that, why to me this is a major moment, especially because these planets haven't had a conjunction like this in 35 years. Okay, so it's definitely breaking at least habits, patterns, and cycles for that long, that have persisted for that long in our life, which for some of us is before we were even born. I wasn't alive the last time the Saturn-Pluto conjunction happened. But it's definitely, I think, going to create a life very different than what we had before. And the fast-moving planets, depending upon what they're doing, they can either make this really big time better or they can make it more challenging. So that's kind of how to put the layers together to see it. Now, the interesting thing about what's going on with this month in particular, now I'm going to take a look here at some of the faster moving planets. We've got a new moon happening here, squaring this spot that I just talked about, the Saturn South Node Pluto, which is going to be the closest that it's ever going to get this month. Okay. And what we have going on here is not only the sun and the moon, this new moon squaring this spot and the nodal axis, but Mercury is also going to be there, and Venus too coming through it, because all these planets have to move past here in the next month. What that can bring, especially when planets square the nodal axis, you got the south node here and the north node here, I think are a lot of choices that we have to make. What are these choices in between? These choices are in between the past, if you want to consider the south node old things that need to go and be changed and transformed with Pluto near it. And you get the future, the north node, what we need to move towards in right now at this point in our life. Okay, and when you get planets in between these 2 points, this is what in evolutionary astrology is called a skipped step. We get scared, we hesitate, we don't want to do these things, we're afraid of them, we don't know which direction to choose, which can be really hard. And what we end up getting stuck in between is the past and the future. Okay, there could be a big tendency here at this new moon, for almost all of this month here, to want to go back into old habits and to do things old ways, or to not do anything at all, possibly as well with the skipped step here. But I think we really need to learn how to overcome some of these fears and insecurities, and to finally take that step forward to doing things differently, and really with the North Node in Cancer, to pursuing things that are more true to your heart, more true to you emotionally, that make you feel better about your life, even if it breaks down some old structures. Okay, so that to me is a really, really huge theme this month of we're finally at a big turning point in our lives. Again, with the North Node, with all these planets square the North Node, also turning point. We're at a big turning point in our lives here to change it in a way we have never seen or haven't seen in 35 years. And we're scared. Do I go forward? Do I move back? Definitely. I think someone asked if there could be regrets. Yes, tons of regrets. What do I do? What do I don't do? You know, could be afraid, could want to ignore it. This isn't happening. My life isn't changing. Maybe if I don't do anything, it'll pass me by and things will get better. Maybe if I don't do anything, things will happen for me and then things will improve on their own. And there could be a lot of that. But I think needing to not be afraid to do what needs to be done and to make the choices, even if it's a little bit scary. That's why I called this webinar No Looking Back, because of all these planets squaring the nodal axis, where we could want to look back with the South Node, Saturn, Pluto, but again, really needing to, to look forward. I don't know, I sometimes always hesitate when I use examples from the Bible, but it was reminding me a lot of one of the stories about Lot's wife. I just like sometimes the Bible, because I don't know, the Bible inspires me. I think religion and astrology can get along fine. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, there's a story about how a family, I guess, in this part of like the country, I guess, who ends up having some really weird things happen around, some not so good situations happen to them. And God gives them an order, I guess, to leave that town and to bring them into a better place where things are going to be a lot easier for them. And they start to go into this new town and go into this place that God has promised for them. But as they're going by, Lot's wife ends up looking backwards at the old life out of regret, out of, wondering if things are okay, out of familiarity. And then she ends up turning into a pillar of salt. So I kind of feel like that's where we are at this point in our life, not wanting to afraid to move forward, but really needing to. Okay. I think at the beginning of this month, I think we have a lot of support, actually, and I'll go through that in shortly. I think the very beginning of this month to me looks beautiful. Like the first 2 weeks of this month look so good, where we finally, I think, start to feel like, okay, I can do this. I can move forward. Everything's going to be fine. I've been preparing for this for how long? I can do it. It's going to work. I feel like we start to get more we start to feel more accepting of ourselves, of our struggles, of other people's struggles, even if we're still kind of hazy in the mind, trying to figure things out. That's because Venus is going to be in Pisces, making relationships improve, not only relationships with other people, but our relationships with ourselves, making us feel better. Venus is exalted in Pisces. It loves it. And then Mercury's going to be in Pisces at the same time. So that's where the relationships are good. We're feeling good, but the confusion, we're still trying to work things out in the mind. We don't quite understand things in the mind, but we're doing it anyways and following a prompting, an emotional prompting, and feeling like we're being led in this direction. So I think the beginning of the month looks great. It's the end of the month, particularly around the full moon. Things don't always correspond around full moons, but for some reason, a lot of the big alignments have been happening around that. And when we get to the full moon in the middle of the month, that's to me when things start to get challenging, because that's when Venus and Mercury move into Aries and they conjunct Chiron. Okay, and that's a challenge because Chiron to me can bring up insecurities and fears, hard things that wherever it occurs. And because Venus goes from being exalted in Pisces, a sign it loves, to being in a sign it hates in Aries. So I feel like what starts to happen towards the end of the month, especially around the time of this full moon in Libra, is that we pump ourselves up finally at the beginning of this month to be like, change, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. Even if last week, I don't know if some of you felt what was going on last week, even if last week was a little bit challenging, we finally pump ourselves up the beginning of April to move forward, to do what we need to do. And then all of a sudden we get to the middle of the month, this full moon in Libra, where we're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to make this choice. I'm going to move forward. And then once we make this choice and all of a sudden it becomes real, that's when I think sometimes towards the end of this month, things are going to get hard. Relationships are going to get challenging. You're not going to be feeling as comfortable as you were feeling earlier in the month. There could be a lot of hard conversations that you have to have with other people and that other people have with you. Perhaps what can happen to me at this middle point of the month, and I'll tell you what day that is in a minute. I'm already chatting too much. But once we get to that middle point of the month, people could be afraid and they could back out. They could know they need to make a change but not want to make it, and then they could back out on you for something that they said they were going to do out of fear. You could back out on other people. I'm encouraging you not to, but you could. That could happen there. Or you could make a decision, and then that decision that you make at the middle of the month to make this thing that you know you need to do more real could then upset people, because now you have more clarity on what you need to do. So there's a lot that can happen the middle of the month that to me, I would just be careful about and I would prepare for. So that's why my opinion is, if you have any decisions in your life that you know that you need to make, to either, make them earlier in the month, and to start anything you want to do it early in the month, and early in the month to do what you need to prepare, gather strength, and get things right, so that when things go crazy at the end of the month, that you are going to feel okay during it, the best that you can. So try the best at the beginning of this month to create a safe space. That means as well, if you make any deals or do anything at the beginning of the month, also to get it in writing, to make it official, because people could back out a little bit later as well. Okay, let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say about that. Yeah, the end of this month is going to be really, really interesting too, because once we finally put our money where our mouth is and make this change, then we realize we have to be a different person. We have to do things differently and work with our relationships differently. And I think that's where the challenge is going to come. But we almost needed the support at the beginning of this month to force us to make that choice and to force us to do it, even if once we do it, it's hard. It's kind of like when I was younger, my parents on occasion would take our family out to really nice restaurants, to steak dinners. We'd go, and I'm from the suburbs of Atlanta, but they would take us out to nice places in Atlanta, not often, but just on occasion, to show us like, look, this is what your life could be. You know, we can't give you steak dinners and fancy dinners and dress up every night, but like maybe one day if you work hard enough, like you can have this life and you can live it. And I feel like that's kind of what's going on at the beginning of the month, as we're starting to get the vision for what our life could be, get really excited about it, so that when the hard stuff gets here, we can be confident in ourselves enough, and that we can have the reserves that it is that we need in the vision of hope for the future to keep us going and to sustain us. Okay. Yeah, it's like everything pumps us up to make this transition, even if when we actually do it, it's a little bit of a challenge. Okay. All right. Yeah, and that's when Jupiter's going to go retrograde, Pluto's going to go retrograde. So once we make the choice to actually do this thing, then it's hard. And then we have to go back on some old things to make those solid, to catch everything up to what we now know, have learned, and are trying to make happen. Okay. I think maybe that's where I'll leave it with. I might just check the chat for a second. It's kind of reminded me a little bit of like things going on, a few things. Maybe I can just tell you, I've given readings to people this past week or two. Some of them are people that have come back to me from the past who have been like, oh man, I've got this decision I need to make. Do I make this decision to do this new thing I've never done before? Or do I go back to this old thing? Or I did decide to do this thing a few months ago, but now I'm doubting myself. Is it what I really need to do? Should I have tried harder? Should I have tried to work this out? Should I really make this decision, do this new business, get a divorce with this person that, you know, it's not working with? And in my opinion, it's one of those things where it's like, you gotta do it. You gotta go forward. Do not go backwards. The tendency to go backwards is strong. Especially this past week when the sun was conjunct Chiron. So if some of you had a really difficult past week, like a week before this, what was that, like March 23rd, then especially the end of this month is going to be a little bit challenging, because we're going to have Mercury and Venus in that same spot. Even last week for me, because I'm just trying to make this a little bit relatable for you all, not like trying to talk about myself here. But even this last week was like kind of difficult for me yet again, especially because I started my astrology business. I'm trying to make it work, and I feel like it's just been really hard for me to get a routine, to get a stride, keep getting sick, all these things coming up. So last week I was just like, I'm not going to do this astrology thing. I'm going to close down my channel, stop giving readings. I'm going to get a 9-to-5 again and live a boring life, you know, with a job that's not going anywhere, but at least I'll have the nights and weekends free and won't be stressed. You know, so I feel like it's a lot of these things that are coming up again. And even I'm trying to tell myself, no, you can work this out. You can make this change. You can do your business. Maybe I need to change my business to be a little bit more of what I want it to be, of what I like it to be, but that I can do it, even if adjusting my business to be what I want is going to take from now until December to finally get it right, even though I wish it was done sooner. So that's where we are. Now I'll go through the charts. Okay, sorry, I'm going to read the chat really quick. Oh, congratulations, Stacy, on becoming sober. Cool. Okay. All right, now I'm going to go through the charts. The new moon in Aries, April 5th, coming up. To be honest with you, again, this is the beginning of the month. I like the beginning of the month. I personally love new moons, most of them, because to me it brings fresh energy, new and exciting things that we're trying to do here. And with the new moon here being in Aries, it's a new you, a new identity here, where you're having to be a new person and to do things in new and different ways than you've ever done before. That's coming here on April 5th. Okay, I like to think that this new moon is gonna be a good one. Maybe I will say that the days in particular around the new moon, April 5th, yeah, could be a little bit of a challenge, because right after this new moon occurs, you see the moon and the sun at 15 degrees. A few hours later, when is this happening? Yeah, so like the afternoon time, the moon's then going to come into a square with that Saturn-Pluto conjunction I was just talking about. So I think what's going on at this new moon on April 5th is when we finally start to realize, hey, I need to become a new person. I need to do things differently, more in accordance with my heart, the North Node in Cancer, to do things that give me real meaning, but it could feel hard to do them. You could feel stressed a little bit. It could feel a little bit heavy. You could want to avoid doing things, and again, needing to keep moving on to do that new stuff. Okay, I think even if things feel a little heavy, a little stressful, like you have these big life-changing decisions hanging over you that are going to turn the course of your life, okay, I think there could be some support here, again, from relationships. Venus is in a very nice spot. Venus loves Pisces. It's exalted here. It loves Neptune, where it's in a conjunction with. It's in a sextile with Saturn. I feel like even if you yourself are stressed out about life and where life is going, I feel like people are helping you. You're starting to get more comfortable with what it is that you need to do. I think conversations are also very positive. Mars in a sextile with Chiron on this day as well. We're having healing conversations, or conversations about what we need to do to heal old wounds that have lingered around and to finally begin to move on. Okay, and this is not a change that all of a sudden just came to us. I hope you all know. It wasn't like yesterday we were like, oh, I'm going to change my life to do this thing. Like, this is a change you've been working on for at least a year. I think way longer than that this month is finally going to happen. And to me, this new moon is all about, can I really make this change that I've been working on, that I've spent so much time on, happen, or what? Or am I going to revert back? And I think even though it's hard, I do. I think people are here to support you. You're starting to get your confidence a little bit more and have the conversations that you need to push you forward. Okay, yeah. So I like this new moon, even if April 5th is a little heavy. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to the 6th through 8th. So the way that I've broken these up is by the moon. The moon changes signs about every 2.5 days. And so there's 12 charts, one for each the moon when it's in a different sign. And that to me is a good way to track our progress throughout the month and how we grow and transform and change over time. April 6th through 8th, the moon's going to leave Aries, which is a little bit of a hard spot right now. I'm not going to lie. Aries, a little bit of a tough place to be at the moment. And it's going to move into Taurus. And I actually love what's going on with Taurus right now. And what happens here on April 6th through 8th is that after we get this idea for this new person that we need to be, or we start to understand that we need to commit to doing something new and different and being a new person in ways that really are a capstone that we've been working on for a while, it then comes to getting more confident when the moon's in Taurus with that thing that you know you need to decide on, or that you are. It comes to holding true to that, to staying committed to it, and to moving forward on it and building on it in a way that more stable, more grounded, that you can feel more confident in. Okay. Now, when the moon first enters Taurus on the 6th, something unexpected could come up. The moon's going to conjunct Uranus to help you break out of your routine, to help you break out of this, rut that you've been in, and to help you do things differently. But again, I think it's going to be really positive to help give you a more clear trajectory of what you need to do in your life and to ground you. Especially because this moon loves being in Taurus, for one, and the moon's exalted there. And the moon's going to be in a beautiful trine to the Saturn-Pluto mess and in a sextile to all these Pisces planets. So to me, I would say especially the 7th and the 8th, I think are going to be days when you're starting to feel like, okay, maybe this person I need to be, and this change is intense, it's scary, but I'm getting it, I'm understanding, I'm holding true to it, I'm a little bit more confident in what needs to occur. Still, conversations are positive, helping you to figure out, because Mercury is going to be in a sextile with Saturn. So conversations, again, even if you're still trying to clear up the haze and figure out what's going on inside you emotionally to motivate you to do this stuff, I think you're starting to get more clarity and starting to communicate with more structure about what you're feeling, about what you need in order to move on in better ways. Okay, yeah, I like what's happening there. All right. Next, we'll go to April 8th through 10th. We're in a Gemini moon, and we're still in a new moon phase. You can tell because it's green. I made the new moons green, as like we're planting seeds. So it's like a little plant in the ground. So that's why I did that. Okay, and April 8th is when the moon moves into Gemini. Now this day, as I don't like as much as the other days with the moon in Taurus. The reason why this day is going to be an interesting one. We're going to have this moon here in Gemini, which is then going to bring our attention whenever the moon's in Gemini, communicating, if not outwardly with other people, then with ourselves. So we had this identity at the new moon in Aries. That's a change, a new person we're going to be that's very different. Maybe it's scaring us, but we know we need to go in this new direction. We then start to get more confident in this direction that we're in, to hold true to it, to commit to it, to figure out positive ways that we can to structure our lives to get what we want. And then we get to this moon in Gemini, where once we feel like we're strong enough in some way, we start to communicate and be more open about what we're doing, what we're feeling, what's going on inside us. And our mind starts to turn a little bit. Maybe it turns against us. I don't know. Could a little bit at this time on these days, April 8th through 10th, starts to run. Okay. The reason why this is going to be interesting is because when the moon's in Gemini, what it's going to do is it's going to conjunct Mars around the 8th. Then as we move to the 9th and 10th, it's going to square all these planets in Pisces. Squares are not necessarily very positive, and it's going to oppose Jupiter. So our mind starts to go here, and we realize we have to communicate now about what we're feeling, which can be a little bit hard to communicate about our feelings. And we've got a lot of new and exciting things that are coming to us. And I think there could be a lot of stuff going on. It's very exciting. It's very lively. We're excited about the future, but maybe we're also frustrated that it's not here yet, that we don't have all the answers, that we haven't had the conversations that we needed. So there could be a lot of that I think starts to come. Yeah, could be some frustrations, but excitement. So it's like one of those weird days where like we sense something, we sense something's coming, but we're unsure about it. We're kind of excited, but we're still trying to work things out emotionally. What's also interesting about this day as well is that this is the day that the sun comes into a square with Saturn, and that Jupiter starts to go retrograde. So that's funny. The moon's touching Jupiter on the day it goes retrograde. And what this can bring is, as we're communicating, we're processing everything, we're thinking about stuff, our mind's running, we're having to be very serious. And we're having to make decisions about our life, about where our life is going, and about how we do things in order to get there. So I do think this day could be a little bit somber, even if we're excited. Oh man, it's like one of those hard things. Because this day, I'm like the moon opposite Jupiter, we're excited, the sun square Saturn, but we're serious. How do we logically, realistically get to this thing that we're excited about, that we were comfortable with a few days ago? That starts to come into the picture here. Jupiter also starts to go retrograde, saying, okay, now that you're getting the idea of what needs to happen in the future, how can you continue doing this thing that's new that you need to do, while also making all the stuff from the past that you've done that's new or different more solid? And how do you move forward on all of it to bring everything that you've been working on the past few months together to make it really last? Okay. All right. Yeah. I do. I think it's a lot about making this identity that we've been working towards solidify, and making it familiar and integrating it into who we are. Even if it requires us to be a little bit more serious about how we do it, and to have some conversations in order to help us get there. All right. Yeah. Okay. I know. I was like, that's going to be a big day. Very emotional, I think, with a lot going on that we're trying to talk about, but could be very productive to help us plan for the future and for what it is that we need to do. And how we can make all things from the past more solid and move forward in good ways. Okay. Now we come to April 12th, the first quarter moon in Cancer. I tried to make it like a pinkish purple, like a little more action oriented, a brighter color. To me, first quarter moons are a lot about doing, initiating, making things happen. It's not that you can't do and initiate things on a new moon. You totally can. But sometimes what I find is that when we do things on a new moon, sometimes it's a little too green, I guess. It's a little too soon to make them happen. To me, the best days to really act and initiate are going to be here in the first quarter. And these days, if you'll notice, do tend to be a little bit more active, a little bit more lively. I think a lot of times on these, the first quarter moon days as well, you'll find people around you a little bit more busy, things coming up than you would perhaps on another moon phase. Okay. Now, what's this about? What are we doing, initiating, trying to make happen on this first quarter moon? Well, I'm going to look where the moon is in Cancer. Cancer has a lot to do here. Well, in a lot of ways, to me, Cancer is our self-image. And not like how other people see us, but how we see ourselves on the inside. Cancer also has a lot to do with our roots, our foundation, our core in a lot of ways, and really private and personal things. So even though, which is kind of interesting, even though this is a very active and lively moon and first quarter moon, I think a lot of it's inward. We're trying to work things out inside. Who am I? How do I feel about this? Can I really readjust my image of myself in order to be these things that I was thinking about yesterday, deciding on, that I was really serious about, and can I actually make that happen in reality? Okay, and we're having to rethink our identity, rethink who we are, not just do things differently, but actually be different in order to make this occur. Okay, could be a little bit intense just because this moon, as it makes its way to this first quarter moon, is going to have to oppose Saturn, Pluto. Here is going to square Chiron. So definitely could feel intense, could bring up a lot of questions about your life, but I think in the end we'll have a very positive resolution, especially as we move towards, the 12th, when this moon conjuncts the North Node. I think even if things are hard, I think even if things are tough today, there could be a feeling of inner peace, a sense of inner knowing with the moon on the North Node, where we say, you know what, this is hard, but this is what my heart needs. This is what my soul needs. Whenever I think of the North Node, I personally love the North Node. Not all astrologers do, but I personally really like the North Node as being the thing we need to do at this time in our life, and as being a thing where good luck follows, fortune, fated events come. And so that's why there's part of me that's like, even if the days leading up to this, the 10th and 11th, even if the days leading up to this first quarter moon in Cancer feel challenging, feel heavy, I think by the time we get to April 12th, our soul is going to know, is going to have messages for us, is going to tell us what we need to do next, is going to help clear the way for other things to start to come in and for us to rearrange things internally in order to meet the other demands of our new life that we're stepping into. Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. Helping us to move forward. Okay. Conversations could also be very interesting too at this time. We've got Mercury this day coming into a square with Jupiter. This is like Mercury at this time in the astrology, to be honest with you, is a little bit of a challenge to interpret, because we just had a Mercury retrograde, which just ended, or right today, and ends today. And typically, by the time Mercury comes out of retrograde and goes direct, I think of this as being a time of great clarity, insights, downloads, things coming to us that we didn't know or that we've been trying to work out happen. And don't get me wrong, I think that has come in a lot of different weird ways, shapes, and forms. I think clarity has come, but I think it's been unusual in the way that the insights have come to us. Because even though Mercury just finished going retrograde and is now direct, which I think is positive, Mercury's in Pisces, a sign it doesn't like, and it's making a square with Jupiter, which is a planet it doesn't like. So that can be a little bit of a challenge, where even though we're getting clarity more so than ever before on what our soul needs and on what we need emotionally, it's working with the rational mind at times could be what's bringing us down. So I think, to me, to be honest, I like April 12th. I like this first quarter moon, but it's all about putting logic behind you and listening to your soul and listening to your emotions. It's not about, well, what if I did this? I could have done that better. I could have made this happen. I should have told this person sooner that I felt this way. Well, what about, it's none of that. When we get to this first quarter moon in Cancer, it's like, what does your soul say? What does your spirit say? What does your intuition say? What is your inkling about? None of this thinking, rationalizing, like if you had to give me an answer in 3 seconds to this question that you have about what you want to do, what would it be? And really following that. And even if it's tough, the 10th, 11th, even if when the moon's in Gemini, we're like kind of all over the place, I think by the time we get to this first quarter moon in Cancer on the 12th, we just know, all right, maybe my logical mind is telling me something else, but my heart is telling me this, and I've got to trust it, and I've got to make that happen. Okay. All right. Maybe then it might become a little bit easier as long as you're communicating about your heart and your emotions too. All right. Now I'll talk about April 13th through 15th. That's when the moon moves into Leo. So we're still in this first quarter moon phase, which is about acting, making things happen in that way. What we're doing here now, when the moon's in Leo, it's always a time of being bold, taking risks, stepping out of your comfort zone even to do things that you enjoy. I typically do, to be honest. I typically do like a moon in Leo because to me the fire signs, especially Leo and Sagittarius, and the moon is going to trine Jupiter around the 15th, they're very optimistic signs. They're very happy. They get very excited about life, very playful in a lot of ways too, comedic even. So I typically do, and Leo's not in too bad of a spot right now. Like these Pisces and this Capricorn stuff may be a little bit hard. But I think once we get right with our soul and our spirit and our emotions the day before at the first quarter moon in Cancer, it then comes to, okay, can you really do this? Be bold. It's time to take risks. It's time to put yourself out there. It's time to live this thing that your soul knows. Okay. I think it could be good and very positive for you, even if there's still some other things in your periphery. Well, can I really be happy? This is changing in my life. I'm feeling this. All this is going on. Okay. But really needing to find ways to put yourself out there despite of, or because, or with all of this stuff going on internally. Okay. The sun trine Jupiter. Yeah, man, and the sun is trine Jupiter that day. Look at this. I love that. So trine's a very easy, positive aspect. Jupiter, I like to think, is a very positive planet as well. So I typically do like, especially as we move a little bit further, maybe the 14th and the 15th here. I like this Leo moon for helping us to, on these days, see new perspectives, see ourselves in new and different ways, formulate a new identity from the inside out, live it, not be afraid to show it, even if some things are weighing on us, and to go for it. Okay. Yeah, Venus also pretty positive here, feeling much better about relationships, feeling more comfortable with ourselves. Okay. All right. Could even be around this time too. Just because Venus, I'm seeing, is going to be in a square with Jupiter. Could also be new people that we can meet. Maybe by putting yourself out there, trying something a little bit different in some way. Especially if it resonates with your heart and soul, it's possible you can meet someone new on this day that can be really beneficial for you to help you do things that are important. Here, it could also be a good time to take pre-existing relationships into new chapters as well. So that could be a pretty good day. I like that. Okay. Yeah, I'm like, I like what I wrote there. Reading that now. Okay. Now April 15th through 17th, when the moon moves into Virgo. Okay, this is a little bit, it's a little bit of a quiet day, even though it's like a first quarter moon. And the reason why, because sometimes the moon in Virgo to me is a little bit more subdued. The moon in Virgo to me is a lot more about, since it is an earth sign, hard work, getting things done, taking care of a lot of business. So it could be a little bit more of a busier day. Maybe we take some new risks. Maybe we try some things a few days beforehand with our newfound self-identity. Now that we're starting to get a little bit more comfortable and excited about our future, even if we're still trying to put all the possibilities and figure everything out in our mind logically here. And I think once we put ourselves out there, the previous few days of the Leo moon, once the moon gets in Virgo here on the 15th and the 17th, maybe we kind of need to come back to ourselves to process everything again and to put more of the things that have come up into work in practical ways. Yeah, that's the best I can say there. Yeah, also what's going to happen is when this moon is in Virgo, it's also going to oppose a lot of these planets here in Pisces too. So it might also require us to slow down a little bit more. So not only that we can understand what's happened in our life the past few days, process some things, but also check in with our spirit and our soul too. I think we're trying to find that good balance of like logic and reason versus intuition and emotion. And to me, this is kind of like one of those days where it's like, okay, I know what my heart says, and I know what I'm feeling, but how can I make sense of all of this and put all the pieces together in a way that logically, so I think there could be a lot of that. And maybe these days just needing to take it a little bit slower on the 15th and the 17th to work everything out inside and to process it and to listen to your spirit and soul so that you don't get frustrated and so that the plans that you make are more solid. Okay. All right. Now we'll get to the full moon in Libra, April 19th. And this to me is when things start to change and not in a positive way. That's because, this is a full moon. I don't know, full moons to me are just kind of stressful personally because they can bring endings, completions, and they bring like tons of like energy, people trying to do things, make things happen, definitely. And this moon in the days beforehand is going to square Pluto, it's going to square Saturn, it's going to square the South Node, and we've got Mercury now in a conjunction with Chiron and Aries. So what to me is happening at this full moon in Libra, again, as I said earlier, is now that we have gotten our confidence up about what we want to do to be this new person, now that we've readjusted our image of ourselves so that we can feel much more stronger in who we are, and now that we've tried to process that our feelings not only intuitively but also logically and trying to put all the pieces together, then I think we start to feel a little bit more motivated to do the things that it is that we need and to even maybe step out of our comfort zone to make some of the things that we thought about and realized earlier manifest in reality. Okay, this may require, especially with the moon in Libra, us to change our relationships again in order to accommodate the insights and the confidence that we received earlier in the month. Okay, again, this full moon correlates a lot, I think, to this last full moon in Libra, except as to where the last full moon in Libra that just happened a week or so ago, we were kind of knowing things needed to change in our relationships. Now at this full moon here on April 19th, it's not just maybe this relationship needs to change and maybe I need to do this. It's more so, no, I made this decision, I made this choice, I need to move forward. You should not regret. And now that I'm moving forward, this person in my life needs to go. This thing needs to end. This thing needs to change. My life is out of balance. And in order for me to live this new life that I want, I can't keep doing X, Y, Z. Okay. And we end up making those adjustments. Normally I would say it's an easy adjustment. But again, with Mercury here in Chiron, in a conjunction with Chiron and with the sun coming up close to a conjunction with Uranus, there could be some hard conversations that you have to have with other people or that people have with you that could be unexpected, that could come out of the blue about these things that they've realized, because now people have gotten to the point where they don't want to hide anymore. They don't want to pretend to make change. They actually want to live it. Okay. So that to me could be a little bit hard. And this is the month, this is the day, April 19th. And in the following days that are going to correspond to the same feeling that maybe some of you felt last week. March, what was that, like March 23rd, 24th, 25th-ish, when the sun was in the same spot. So again, if that week was hard, then maybe similar things that happened that week may come back here on April 19th to be dealt with, processed as well. This is also the time too where I'm like, if you got any big things you want or need done with relationships, be careful of doing them April 19th. We're going to talk 20, 21. We're going to get further than that. Be careful of this point in the month, because people may not be as forgiving, especially as we move further, as forgiving as they were earlier in the month, and you also may not feel as comfortable. Okay. This could also be too where either, I don't know, do I want to say people go back on their word? I don't know if I want to say people are going to go back on their word if they're told you something earlier, but there could also be at this time too, more information is revealed about people that earlier you thought were going to do one thing that now happens to do another. So I think to handle this time with sensitivity and with vulnerability would be key. Also, one thing that I think is super important with this alignment too, is because I see how the month changes, how the beginning to me, even if we still have fears, anxiety, like even if we still have anxieties about things, but we're feeling more confident, but we're still trying to work everything out. I see how the month changes, and it gets real interesting around April 19th and onward. And so that's why part of me wants to say, listen very carefully to what people say to you early on in the month. Because those things that are little at the beginning of the month that people don't know how to say or are confused about or trying to say the best can become real big as we move through the month. So if someone suggests something to you at the beginning of the month, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I mean, it can be a bad thing, but it can be a good thing too, even though it might still require some sensitivity and vulnerability here. So if someone gives you a little hint at the beginning of the month, well, I don't know how I feel about this. And I don't know, maybe we need to change it here. Listen to them, even if they're confusing in the way that they state it, even if they're not sure they want to make a decision on that yet. Because that little thing you could all of a sudden realize when, as we move throughout the month, is all of a sudden actually a really big thing that now that you're moving forward is a huge hanging up point. So keep your notes. If there's something someone says it's a little bit off and not in line with what you were thinking or hoping, deal with that early in the month so that later in the month you're a little bit more prepared. Okay. All right. So we're actually starting to do more of the things here that we need to put our life in a place that's going to be different and better for us. And as a result, we're changing our relationships, and maybe even readjusting some things in our life to restore the balance, a new normal here. And as a result, we're having to have hard conversations with people, perhaps unexpectedly, things happening unexpectedly with us that may not be that pleasant as we finally, now that we have the courage, move forward. Okay. All right. Now we're moving on, still in a full moon phase with this blue purple here color. We've got April 19th through 21. We've got this moon in Scorpio. Okay. Yeah, how do I feel about a moon in Scorpio? Lately, I've actually been pretty positive about a moon in Scorpio, just like I've been positive about a moon in Taurus. I was like, typically the moon doesn't like Scorpio, just because that can bring really strong, really deep, intense emotions about change, things that need to go on here. And I know it's like the moon's in a good spot today, but even though these other planets aren't. So I feel like what's going on here is that we realize there are some changes we need to make in relationships and with other people and in our life in order to restore the balance back. And then when the moon enters Scorpio on the 19th, 20th, and the 21st of April, we start to say, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to hunker down. I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to make the change. I'm going to do what needs to be done. Again, could feel scary. People could be weird, but I'm going to do it anyways. Okay, I think you not being afraid to make the change and to get messy with people. To me, Scorpio is a sign of sex, death, and taxes. So these are the three things you don't talk about at dinner. And we've got this happening, moon in Scorpio, while we've got Mercury in a really hard spot. So I think it could bring a lot of hard conversations with people, having them deal, make changes, get messy in other people's junk. Other people got to get in your junk, even though it could be hard. And I don't know if things are going to feel better right away with some of these alignments. I think it's going to be necessary in order for you to start to feel like you're putting your life in the right direction. Things on the surface with some of this stuff going on in Libra could feel uncomfortable, but by you doing the things your soul wants and needs and making these changes, you're going to feel better internally, even if externally things still feel interesting. Okay. What's also going on this day too is not just Mercury in a conjunction with Chiron, making conversations very difficult, but Venus is also going to enter Aries. I did say this at the beginning of the webinar. Venus does not like Aries. The reason why Venus is not like Aries is because Venus is all about relationships and Venus is all about balance. And Aries don't care about relationships. Aries doesn't care about balance. All Aries wants is me, 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 I. This is what's important to me. This is what I need. I'm just going to do it. I don't care if it's going to upset the balance of things. So we get this kind of interesting spot here now where people start to get around April. I guess this is going to happen April 21st. Not as caring in relationships. People don't have time for all this BS, for all this talking about all these things that could start to go on here. All right. I'm like, maybe, because I was like, in the full moon, Venus is still going to be in Pisces. So I'm like, things might be okay on April 19th, even if you're having some hard conversations. But I think by April 21st, those things are not going to be feeling as comfortable. Okay, with the Venus here. Now that you've gotten some answers, things have gotten a little messy. Now that you've gotten deeper with people on this change, I think people are going to be less willing to pull their punches on April 19th. Well, April 21st is when Venus is going to happen. Okay. People also, the sun's going to move into Taurus on this day too. So I feel like even though some change could be coming up, that people could be talking about things that they feel could bring up some uncomfortable conversations with people being less forgiving now that they're making changes, moving forward on some journey. I feel too, I don't know if I want to say stubborn, but I feel like people might, again, be sticking with it. This is my decision. I made it. I'm going to go for it and try my best to be confident with it. Man, what's interesting too is about now all of a sudden everything on the chart is on the left side of the chart. The left side of the chart is more about you and the right side of the chart is more about our relationships. And so right now where the balance of power is in this chart is people are thinking about themselves. What do I need? What's good for me? What's in it for me? Okay, whatever you need, but what about me? Am I getting taken care of? And so I think people become a little bit more concerned about themselves here on April 21st. Even if they were trying to play it nice at the beginning of the month, and not that people were playing nice at the beginning. I think people were still trying to figure things out at the beginning of the month. And I feel like once we get to that full moon in Libra, we start to figure things out. We start to get more clarity. We start to go for what we want and need. And then that's when our relationships get the aftermath of all that. And now that we've made our decision, are less forgiving. Yeah. And are more committed. Next, we get to April 21st and 23rd, the Sagittarius moon. Again, the reason why it's hard for me to be optimistic about some of these days is just this Venus conjunct Chiron. Again, Venus rules relationships, it rules money, and it rules our own self-worth and beauty in a lot of ways. So again, we cannot be feeling like the self-worth is high. Relationships may not be feeling the way that we want to feel. Money. It's very hard for me to be optimistic with these kind of alignments going on. However, I do like where the moon is today, if that makes sense. With the moon here in Sagittarius coming over Jupiter, we could start getting to feel like we're doing things new and different. Okay, we made some change. The change was hard. We had some conversations. This conversation sucked. We're having to be a little bit harder to people, or people are being a little bit difficult with us. Things could be happening that are unexpected with the sun conjunct Uranus out of nowhere that are really strange. But I think we're starting to get a little bit more excited with the moon here in this conjunction with Jupiter and Sagittarius and say, you know what? It is what it is. I got to do something new and different. So I got to make this happen. This is the change that it was earlier, and now I'm living the change. So I think that could be a big part of it there that begins to come. Okay. Unexpected things on this day for sure. Crazy. Especially with the sun conjunct Uranus, this crazy moon on Jupiter, Venus. I mean, this to me is like a real firecracker of a day. The 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Probably more the 23rd. I tried to pick days here. The charts that I actually chose to show you, I tried to pick the most interesting day of the time the moon was in that sign. Okay. All right. Yeah. Living the new life. We're making it happen, even if it's uncomfortable and having to do hard things, and we're moving forward on it. Yeah, we've got Saturn conjunct this. Finally flushing old things down the toilet to get rid of those as well. All right, we're going to April 23rd through 26th. The moon here now is in Capricorn. Again, still unexpected things are happening. People are doing weird things with the relationships. Some very interesting conversations going on here. With the moon conjunct Saturn, we could be very serious about what's happening. The moon's going to conjunct the South Node. These are my least favorite days out of all of them. We could be feeling like we got to go back to old things. April 25th, when I have this day screenshotted. We got to go back to old things, deal with old issues one more time. Sure, we're doing something new. We're living this new identity. We made the changes to do it. Maybe logically, we're still trying to work it out. Maybe on the surface, we're still trying to work it out, even if our soul knows what we need to do here. And we can have some responsibilities we need to take care of. We could have some things from the past that we still need to flush out, to get rid of, to finally make this change really real, to make it a thing that starts to happen here. Okay, again, people are breaking free from old things to do what they need. Yeah. Pluto goes retrograde as well here. Moon's going to touch it on the same day, helping us to make the changes that it is that we need to get our life in shape and to make it happen. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next, we'll go to the third quarter in Aquarius. I know I'm at my hour. Let's see how many more pages I got left. All right, I've got about 4 pages, and then I'll take some questions. Okay. We got a third quarter in Aquarius. I put the third quarter moon in red here, just because third quarter moons to me are not a time to act. They're not a time to do things. They're a time to stop, red, to process, to integrate, to let go of old things, and to maybe even tie up some old stuff you got hanging around. So that's why I put it there. With this third quarter moon happening in Aquarius, what are we letting go of? We're letting go of old visions for our future, old dreams, maybe even old friends that we used to have. And yeah, we're seeing our life very, very differently as a result, and having to release things that we thought we wanted that didn't work or that aren't for us right now. Okay. Yeah, to me, this might be as well when things start to slow down a little bit. So the past few days, when was this? I have this April 26th. These days, I'm telling you, this full moon phase is going to be intense. It's going to start at this full moon on April 19th. I think it's going to get real interesting here on April 21st through 23rd. And maybe even it might linger a little bit here to the 26th. And then once we get here to this third quarter in Aquarius, I think that's when it's like the worst is over, everything's come out, things have gotten crazy, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, like let's just think about this. Let's just chill out. Let's just figure out what's going on here, what I need to do differently, what I need to release so that I can move on. And yeah, things calm down a bit. You're going to have Mars in a square with Neptune on that day. Again, not a productive day. Mars square Neptune, not a good day to do things, not a good day to make things happen. You could feel a little bit lazy this day. You could feel sleepy. You could feel like you're in a haze. Like maybe even like you're have like vivid dreams. Maybe you could feel like you're living in a dream world a little bit now that your life is so different. So again, I think this is a good day to rest, to meditate, to do art, to do something that you don't have to put that much thought or effort into, because I think that will help you work things out inside. I think there's a lot going on spiritually and emotionally that needs to be processed here. Could be a little bit of a confusing day, but could be a good day. Again, take that break, let go of some old stuff, and just be to yourself to process. Yeah, definitely could be a tad emotional, I suppose. Okay. Then we get to April 28th through May 1st. The moon then moves into Pisces. Again, I like a moon in Pisces. The moon loves being there as well, just like Venus liked being there when it was there at the beginning part of the month too. I think this is also a time still emotional, dealing with your emotions, figuring out what's going on there, processing stuff emotionally, trying to understand what's happened logically in your life, and to be okay with it and to move forward. Okay. At this time too, we've also got Mercury coming into a square with Saturn and Pluto, where the sun was a week or so earlier as well. So this is now when our mind needs to catch up. We made a change in our life. We made a decision to do things, to be who we want. Even if you didn't think you made a decision, you made a decision. Even not doing anything, even not deciding is making a decision this month. Even not, yeah, I'm like, whether you do something or you don't do something, this month is going to change your life and decide your fate in a lot of ways. And I think we did or did not do something earlier this month. And that's now on April 28th, May 1st, when Mercury comes into the same spot saying, okay, process, think about this. What does it mean? Understand it more fully than you did before. What's happening? Communicate about the change. Let people know what's going on, get right with it as well. They'd be thinking very seriously about what's going on at this time. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, now we've got May 1st through 3rd. The moon then moves into Aries, where it started at the beginning of this webinar. It makes it a dark moon. Dark moons to me are very internal, a lot of stuff going on inside, a little bit more private and personal here as well. Again, I think we're just trying to figure out, we're circling back on the new moon and we're saying, okay, we were this new person. We became this new person. There was some new different thing we were doing. Again, now we have to allow ourselves to be it and to be okay with it at that time. Okay. Releasing an old identity, letting go of old ideas of yourself and allowing yourself to do things differently, finally, and to close the cycle that was started at the beginning of the month. Yeah. I was like, could be a little bit of a challenge just because, again, the moon in Aries is a tough spot. It's going to square Saturn, going to square Pluto, going to square the South Node, like all in the span of a day or two. When is this going to happen? May 2nd. But this day is really to help you in May 2nd. Did you learn the lessons that the new moon taught you? Or, it's time for you to finally feel okay with all those things and to move past it instead of getting tripped up all over again by the same things that you felt earlier. And to accept that you're a new person doing things differently. And then we get to May 4th, the new moon in Taurus, where we start a new cycle. To me, new moons start new cycles. And that is going to be a lot about your confidence, being confident in who you are. It's going to be a lot about sticking with this new person that you've become, to really make it last, to step into it in a more stable kind of way that's then going to occur. All right, we're still working things out with relationships. We're still trying to work things out. So maybe the things that came up earlier were intense, had a lot of moving parts, had a lot of things that come up, but at least I think right now at May 4th, we're starting to work things out with relationships from a much better place now that some things were exposed, now that we had some hard conversations here, and now that we feel a little bit better with everything that's come up, we've processed it, we've made sense of it. I think at this new moon, May 4th, it then becomes easier for us to make decisions, final decisions about relationships, about money, so that we can finally begin to move forward. Maybe relationships didn't quite crumble, the cookie didn't quite crumble in the way that we wanted, but I think here in May 4th, we begin to say, okay, I'm putting the pieces together, I'm working with what I got to do what it is that I need, and I'm moving on, and I'm going to take what it is that I have, and I'm going to make it beautiful, even if they're little bits and pieces that occurred later on, okay, and to really move forward on it. Yeah. Mars opposite Jupiter too, so I think we start to get in this new moon as well, more excited, more passionate. Even if the past few weeks we were put through the ringer a little bit at that new moon, at that full moon, I think by the time we get to May 4th, we've let some stuff go, we've processed it, even if it was uncomfortable, and now we're meeting the world again with renewed strength, with renewed confidence, now that some of the hard stuff happened, and working with what we have from a better place. Okay, I think that's my last page. Does anyone have any questions? I'm just going to check the chat really quickly. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. Also, let me know if you want me to go over this worksheet at the very end. To be honest with you, it's very, very simple. Maybe I will. I'll go over that before I look at the chat, but put your questions there if you have any. They're just 3 questions. I try to do these questions really, they're very basic, they're very simple, but just to get you thinking a little bit about your own life, about your own chart, and about how to read an astrology chart. You don't have to look at your own birth chart in order to answer these questions. You can just like free write and whatever comes to mind, and they can work effectively that way. But if you also want to learn astrology and you want to apply it to your chart as well, you can do that. And I try to put little hints here in parentheses. So my first question is what part, maybe it should have been which part of your life is at a major turning point. In order to do that, you would look here at 15 degrees Aries, because that's what's squaring, that's where the new moon is, that's squaring the nodal axis, Saturn and Pluto. That can bring that big change in your life. All you need to do basically to look at this is the house. 15 degrees Aries, what house is that for you? Is it the 10th house? Is it the 4th house? Is it the 3rd? Like whatever that is, and then correlate, okay, it's in the 3rd house, or it's in the 4th house. What is the 4th house? So the 4th house is home and family. So maybe I'm moving and I'm making a big choice about where to live. Okay, the 4th house is, yeah, family members. Maybe there's a dispute with my family. I got to figure out what do I do with my family? What's how do I work with my family? So maybe there's part of that that's going on. 4th house is also your own self-image. So maybe there's things going on there. So you just kind of put the pieces together that way. Okay. Is there anything else I want to say about that? If you're more advanced, you can then look at 15 degrees Aries and you can say, what aspects does 15 degrees Aries make in my chart? And to do that, you're going to want to look at any other planets that you have at or near 15 degrees of a sign. So if you're saying 15 degrees Aries, and then you say, oh, wait a second, but I've got a planet here, 15 degrees Libra, I have 15 degrees Cancer, I have 15 degrees Gemini, then you're going to know, okay, that's going to be affected and that's going to be brought into this turning point. And sextiles and trines typically are going to make that turning point a little bit more positive, and conjunctions, even though that depends, and squares and quincunxes may make that transition a little bit more of a challenge. Okay, you're going to do the same with the next question. What in your life needs to adjust so you can make this turning point manifest and no longer look back at the past? You can either just think about that, just like whatever comes to mind, and write that. Or you can look at your chart and you can say, where is Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node in my chart? It's happening at 22 degrees Capricorn. And wherever that is in your chart, 22 degrees Capricorn by house specifically is going to need to change. So if it's in your 7th house, well, as if it's in, I guess realistically, if we want to use the 4th house example, if it's in your 1st house, then you're going to know Saturn, Pluto, South Node in my 1st house. I'm the one that needs to change. I'm the one that needs to be different, so that I can start to have a home life, change my home life in a better way, and partner with people better, you know? So there's things like that that start to come into play. Okay. And then the same with the 3rd question, except now we're looking at Mercury, Venus, Chiron at the 0 degrees Aries, the really sensitive spot that I talked about mid-month. Okay, and there's important dates in terms of the ingresses and the retrogrades happening there. Okay. All right, now I'm just going to look at the chat. Let's see. How long will Pluto retrograde last? Let me check. I'm like, I should probably know these things. Let's see. But I have some tools that will help me. So I'm just looking at that now. Or maybe I can just show you. I was like, it might be interesting for some of you to see how I look at some of this stuff. I can look at it on a chart, but this is an ephemeris. We've got Pluto retrograde. It's going to start right here. What is that? April 25th, 2019. And it's going to continue to go retrograde until right here, October 3rd, 2019. And Jupiter's going to be out of retrograde then. Here I can tell you when Jupiter retrograde, how long that'll be. Jupiter retrograde is going to start here around April 11th, and then it's going to end right here, August 11th. So that's why, there's a lot of people that are coming to me in readings about timings of things, wondering when things are going to happen. And a lot of times when I read your chart, I'm like, you got to wait until the planet passes the last time, because until these planets go retrograde. And when they go retrograde, it doesn't mean that, it means that there's something about that part of your life that you're still trying to work out that's not complete yet. So you can't expect, when you see a planet going retrograde over an important part of your chart, things to finish. And so that's why I think there's a lot of things that we're going to start this month that are going to be huge, life-changing, totally different than anything we've ever done. But because we're starting these things around the time of the equinox, when Pluto and Jupiter both go retrograde at this time that this is happening, I feel like we're starting it, we're getting to that point, and then we're realizing, okay, here, I'm good, I'm safe. I don't know if safe is the word this month, but I've made the jump, I've made the leap off this precipice into this new thing, and now I got to go back and fill all the details in and bring everything up to speed. And then by the time all that stuff from the past is going to finally be up to speed, we're going to start in August when Jupiter comes direct. It's going to take us a little bit longer until Saturn comes direct, which won't be until September. Then we're going to have to wait until Pluto to come direct here in October. So a lot of these things that are happening now, they're great. We're starting things. We're getting things moving. It's a major turning point, but the things that we're starting are not going to finally start to hit home in a really holistic kind of way until August, September, October, and finally December. December is the month that Saturn-Pluto conjunction comes exact, and the things you're starting now, you're going to see take off, be finished, be done with. You can move on, feeling better. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat again. Identity crisis. Yeah, you can definitely say a little bit of it. Definitely. We want to think of Aries as being the sign of our identity, which it is. And then if we want to think of this Aries new moon squaring Saturn and Pluto, your identity changing in a big way. The north and south nodes also in the square, confused, unsure, unsteady. What do we do? Don't fall back into old habits and patterns. Let yourself be a new person, especially with Chiron and Aries too. It's like, you don't have to know who you're about to come. Like I think that's the thing, is like, we want to change our lives and have it all figured out. Well, if I change my life, then I'm going to be this person. And now that I'm in this life, this new person does this thing in this way and wears this and dresses like that. And it's like, okay, you don't have to know all of that in order to make the choice to change, in order to move. You'll figure that out as you go. Okay. People wanted me to show an example of finding, using the questions. So I'm going to pull up my own chart and just show you how that's done. I'm just going to get it ready here before I share my screen. Yeah, and feel free to head out if it's like late. I know I'm over an hour. I'm done just answering your questions, and you can always check the recording, which will be sent out to you as well, hopefully in the next few hours, but definitely by this time tomorrow night. Okay. All right, now I'm going to share my chart with you. All right, this is me. I'm going to get my pointer out. My questions, sorry, I got to move this over to see what my questions were. The first question here was, what part of your life is at a major turning point? And so you have to look at where 15 degrees Aries is for that. You can do it in two ways. You can just eyeball your chart and say, well, where is 15 degrees Aries? And so you could look and be like, oh, well, there's Cancer. That's not Aries. Okay, there's Scorpio. That's not Aries. Where is it? Oh, okay, this is the symbol for Aries. All right, where's 15 degrees? Well, I have this thing at 10 degrees Aries. 15 degrees must be right about here. So you can look at this and say, okay, 15 degrees Aries, it's fallen in my 10th house. Well, what does 10th house rule? 10th house rules career. The 10th house rules my life direction, my reputation, my social standing, the way that other people see me. So there's something here about my career that I'm going to have to make a decision about. What kind of career do I have? What kind of direction do I want my life to go in? What do I want my reputation to be? What do I want to be known for by other people? Okay, that goes back to, again, me saying I was thinking about earlier this month, I really was, last week was bleak, thinking about going back to doing journalism again, my old career here. You can also pull up the transits around this chart here. I have a program that'll do it. I use Astro Gold. You can use Ephemeris, which is another program I like that are desktop applications. You can also use astro.com, which will allow you to do this too. And then I can look at this, and I can move this transit here to like that day, April 5th, at the time of the new moon. Here, it's going to be right around here, April 5th, even though this chart's for April 4th, 15, there it is, 15 degrees Aries in my 10th house, and then that's how I know. Okay, and then I can also, and then I can see the aspects. I've got this new moon at 15 degrees Aries. It's going to sextile my moon. So that should be a positive thing. It's a sextile, positive conversations about where my life is going. What else is it going to do? It's going to square my Neptune. So even though I've got a lot of positive conversations about my future, my career, what I ultimately want that to be, maybe I'm a little bit confused about how to do things on the day-to-day and in what way. So there could be a lot of that going on. Okay. My next question we can look at, what in your life needs to adjust so you can make this turning point manifest? And it's looking at 22 degrees Capricorn, where the Saturn-Pluto South Node thing is happening. So it just so happens it's easy for me to find 22 degrees Capricorn is right here in my descendant. But you would just look for the Capricorn symbol and then look at the degrees and determine which way you need to go. So in order for me here to have a career that I want or feel better about my career, sorry, I got to plug in my laptop before it dies. But in order for me to move forward, feeling better about my career into the future, having a better life direction that I want, it's possible I may have to make a big change with my relationships. I might have to do things differently with people, with my one-on-one consultations or my own personal life. I may have to relate to people one-on-one in different ways so that I can start to feel better about where my life is going. Here as well, or associate with different people, so there's a lot of things that can come up there. And then I'd also look, well, what else is affected by that? What else do I have at 22 degrees in my chart? All right, well, I have the North Node at 18 degrees. I know that this is a sextile just from looking at this stuff, but you can also pull up the charts and be like, okay, it's going to be in a sextile here, this blue line with the Mars and the North Node. So this change in my relationships, maybe I have new relationships come in. I do things new and different with people that are exciting. Also, I've got 22 degrees here, Gemini, that's a quincunx. So even though I'm doing things with people that could be new or exciting, changing those things, maybe I don't know how to talk to people, I'm a little bit uncertain about what to say, I'm having to come out of my shell a little bit. So, okay, does that help? And then the Aries stuff is going to be here in the 9th house. The last question was about where the Mercury-Venus stuff is going to occur in Chiron. So where can I speak with a little bit more vulnerability or sensitivity to minimize the impact here? Maybe I got to be more open to new people, new things, new possibilities, doing things differently, and allow myself to explore different options as well instead of doing things the same way they've always been. Okay. Christine says, potential major relationship change, but I have no idea what the direction is going to be. Yeah, I think listen to the signs, listen to the red flags. Like if you see something come up early on in this month that is said with a smile, but it's kind of like pay attention to those little things, because those things can definitely become bigger. But I don't want to sow doubt as well. Yeah, I don't want to sow doubt as well. I know, because I was like, it could also be a time, I mean, I don't know your situation if you're contemplating a divorce or whatever, but could also be a time too where that other person could decide to make a big change in their life, finally, to be what's needed at this point in time. But again, I would pay attention to the signs and make sure that they're happening on a consistent basis in order to get there. Yeah, I like that. The Leah May, she says it's like what used to work for me does not work for my soul anymore. Exactly. I feel like we're all like snakes shedding our skin. Do snakes shed? I think snakes shed skin, and it's weird because it leaves like a really long like dead skin thing behind. Like there's nothing wrong with you deciding like, you know what, this just isn't me anymore at this point in my life. like there's no reason why you should feel bad for that. We outgrow things, things are different, and it just so happens that is what this time in our lives is all about. Like, we're outgrowing our skin, we're outgrowing old things, nothing wrong with those old things. Maybe at that time they were just what we needed. Maybe they weren't, but maybe they were. And now we're different, and our soul is calling us somewhere else. And I think we need to be okay with doing that, even if it goes against the grain or what we have been doing in the past. Thanks, Chris. Oh, thank you. Cool. Well, hopefully that answered your questions. Oh, thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, that makes me so happy. Yeah, astrology, I feel like kind of found me. I was not planning on doing this at all. um, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey. And starting your own business is not what I expected it to be or thought it would be a year ago. But okay, thank you so much for watching. This recording should be available to you all if you want to watch it again. Definitely in the next 24 hours. I'm going to try to get it up there as soon as I can before that, though. So cool. I hope you have a great month, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Good night.